Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Yep, I can see it.
All right. I didn't get too crazy on the title page, but I did do something, a nice background. So interviewing tips and reminders, and Ed, Parker, Karen, if you all want to add anything or jump in, or if anybody has a question, if y'all want to keep an eye on the chat as well, please feel free to, you can hold questions to the end, or you can ask right away. So I'm talking and I don't want to stop. Hey, this is a conversation, and this is for you all. To help to better you. It's probably a lot of stuff that you do know, but I think sometimes it's good to kind of hear it again. In between all of us, we've done a lot of interviewing, and specifically a lot of interviewing for actuaries. So we've seen a lot. So starts off with just kind of what did you like best about your last job? Sometimes people have birthday and there's free cake. It's just kind of an example of maybe come up with something different, or you can use that. But something that we hear things like that sometimes. So just kind of added it in there that maybe there's better things than free cake, perhaps. Let's see. Okay, so just so you're aware of our interview process. This goes for internships. This also goes for full-time stuff. Obviously there's an application process on the Humana website. Typically we use a pre-screen that can be a phone call, or it can be Modern Hire, which is a video pre-screen. Now the video pre-screen can be in person, or it can be a pre-recorded. I like the pre-recorded because it kind of gives you the flexibility to do the interview when you want. And gives the hiring manager the ability to see you and kind of hear how you put your thoughts together and things like that. So internal reference check, that would be for internal candidates, obviously, and then an interview, which can be virtual or in person, mostly virtual these days. And then the offer, that's the fun part. That's when you've been through everything. So some of the things to do when you're prepping for an interview, and again, I'm sure you all have heard this, you all know this, sometimes it's good to hear, again, to research the job and the department. Occasionally we do, whether it's on campus or it's, for full-time roles, sometimes people don't know too much about Humana, which, I don't expect you to be an expert, but I expect you to at least have done research and kind of know what we do and kind of know the position that you're interviewing for. Reflect on your past achievements and think about where you want to go in the future and what you want to work on, because I always say that it's one of those things, we're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing us, because this is an important thing, where you're working, where you're starting your career, where you're continuing your career, and things like that. So make sure you prepare, make sure you know what the company does, and at least the basics of the position for which you're interviewing. So a little more on interview prep. Mock interviews with a leader or peer. It can really be anybody. You can do a mock interview with, I've heard of people doing it with their own phone, where they videotape, they video themselves and come up with some sample questions, and they see how they look, and they go back and they watch themselves, because sometimes you'll pick up different things, and everybody hates how they sound. Everybody hates how they look, if you go back and watch yourself, but you can pick up on things like, am I sitting up straight? Am I making eye contact? And is my voice good? Things like that. So, the more you do it, the more easy it becomes. So the more practice, practice the questions out loud, write your answers down. The great part about video interviews, especially, is that, for example, right now I could have things written right here all around me, and you guys can't see it. So at least it's there if you need it, type of deal. I wouldn't sit there and read things and talk like this. You can kind of look and glance and things like that. Again, don't read on it, but you can definitely have notes. And I would never fault somebody for having notes. I would expect that they have notes somewhere around them. So I think that's really helpful. And sometimes it can kind of calm you down, especially if you get a question. I'd never fault anybody for saying, hey, do you mind if I take a second and think about it? And if they happen to kind of look away and look at some notes, not a big deal. I would expect that in person. I would expect that virtually. So I think people think too much about that they can't do that. And that's definitely something you can do. Again, I wouldn't just read off of it, but you can definitely have notes there. We also kind of see how you live Humana's values when you're interviewing specifically for Humana. So those are our values, you know, so I just kind of added that in there. Again, if you're interviewing with, you know, a different health insurance company or something, I wouldn't throw out Humana's values, but you know, that's them for Humana specifically. So any questions to this point? Does anybody have any questions over interview prep or what we've covered so far? I'll just pause for a second just in case. Okay, cool. Matt, Ed, Karen, anything to add? All right, I'll take the silence as I will continue. So here's a little bit more on video interviews specifically. You know, I'm sure you all have gotten on a you know, a Zoom or a different platform for an interview or for a class or for a meeting. This really applies to all of that. You know, I think specifically interviews, you know, maybe more so. So I always say be prepared to be on video. So, you know, I've heard of sometimes it's like, you know, it says phone and you know, it's like, hey, why don't we hop on video? And it's like, oh, I can't because my hair is all crazy. Or you know, I don't have a shirt on, or you know, whatever the case is. Just you know, make sure you can at least hop on video. It's ideal, you know, just in case. So I always like to be early and prepared. So and you know, if you are interviewing, you can have your resume there. But I always say, you know, kind of try to get on there 5 minutes early. Just to make sure the connection is stable. I think that's the biggest piece. You know, our technical difficulties. I did the same thing for, you know, preparing for this, made sure that the connection was stable, got on a little bit early, you know, because I understand too that things happen, but you just want to do what you can to alleviate those, you know, concerns and do what you can to you know, do your best to make the connection stable. Check your surroundings, what can be seen. Hopefully everything's good back here. I got a nice, you know, you can put up a painting or blur your background or have an IABA logo, you know, or you know, whatever. Just stay away from anything too crazy in the background. But I also understand, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of students, so I also understand that a lot of people are in dorm rooms. So, you know, if you have to have a bunk bed in the background or whatever the case is, it's perfectly understandable, but just try to make it so you're in an environment at least that, you know, is quiet where you can focus and things like that, and do what you can with the background. Obviously, there's always going to be something happening, you know, doorbell could ring or the, you know, UPS might be delivering something. I mean, things definitely happen, but at least take a glance at your background and make sure it's pleasing. Business professional, I mean, it doesn't, I don't fault someone if they interview and they have a polo shirt on. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, I think some companies are a little more strict on that. I always say kind of err on the side of being more business professional than casual. You don't want to show up in a polo shirt and be in a panel interview and have, you know, 4 people wearing suits. You know, kind of go towards the suit, unless it's specified like, hey, wear a golf shirt or a polo shirt or, you know, something like that. I would always at least wear a, you know, have a collar or, you know, women, something professional-ish, you know, at the very least. But I always say for an interview, especially, you know, kind of go towards more professional. You know, and again, it doesn't even mean you have to put shoes on or anything like that. So, you know, at least from what you can see, make sure everything looks nice on a virtual interview. Camera for eye contact and smile. Now, it's hard. It's like sometimes it's unnatural. Like even right now, I'm looking at the camera. It's like a bright light right there and stuff. So just try to be yourself and be as natural with it as you possibly can, even though you're not in person. Again, a little more on the notes in your resume. kind of again, just have them there, but also make sure to look up and not just, be reading off the thing, because the person can still see you even though you're not in person. So, so again, a little more on video. Please check your internet connection, including the audio. A lot of times we have people get on and the audio is not working. So make sure you have a dial-in number, especially for an interview. I would make sure to have the Zoom dial-in. So at the very least, if you get on and you can't get the audio working on the computer, that you can, kind of say, hold on a second and dial in a few minutes. You're at least on the phone and you can hear the person. So that happens. And again, hopefully the person interviewing you understands that, unless, maybe that's a good indication of maybe somewhere you don't want to be if they fault you for your audio not working. I think in today's day, we should be a little bit more understanding that things like that happen, and no matter how good your connection is, or where you are, that things happen. So again, quiet, well-lit place. Yeah, make sure you have some lights on. I've done a lot of interviews where I feel like I'm watching a witness protection situation. You guys have seen that before, right? You know what I'm talking about, where they, it's all dark and you can't really see the person. It's like they're in the shadows. So I always kind of like light. Actually, I could have more light here, maybe. See, my lights aren't working. Oh, there we go. A little more light. Maybe you see me better. Let's let there be light. So again, with the technology, any unnecessary browser tabs or applications, that can just kind of take away from your bandwidth or things like that. So I always close out as much as I can. Things like if you have Microsoft Teams or you have different applications where people can ping you constantly, just put yourself on busy, silence your phone. Make sure your computer's plugged in. If you need your phone, make sure your phone's plugged in. I always say treat it like an in-person interview as much as you can. So, any questions, concerns, anything you want me to elaborate on with what we've covered so far? Okay.
Yes, please ask questions. I think this is a good place to ask questions. You can also drop it in the chat, take yourself off mute, or you can send it to me directly. I know some people like that as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about anything really, because like I said, we've done thousands of interviews for actuarial interns, probably close to that for full-time actuaries. So actuaries specifically, I think, also have the actuarial interview process is a little bit different than if you're interviewing for a sales job or something different. I think, so we've seen a lot there. This stuff, the video interview, kind of plays wherever you're interviewing, but we especially love actuaries, and that's what y'all are going to be. So here's a little bit on in-person, and again, I'm sure we're getting back to this a little bit, and I'm sure you're going to start to see at Humana, we're starting to do some in-person interviews along with those video interviews. So, with in-person, and it's been 3 years or so of virtual interviews. So, if you're a student and you're 20, you've maybe never done an in-person interview unless it was for a high school job or something like that. So it's kind of a different world now, but always make sure with in-person interviews that you check the location and exactly where it is, because even if you have an address, a lot of times there's more that goes into that, such as parking and figuring out what floor it's on or who you're meeting with. And I always say, leave yourself more time than you think you would need to get somewhere and to get to an interview, because there's nothing worse than running into an interview and you're like in the lobby and it's 4 minutes to go and you're trying to figure out where you're going and you sit down, and interviews are stressful enough. So leave yourself plenty of time. By a few minutes, I mean a lot more minutes probably than a few. Just make sure you know where you're going. Again, business professional, unless it's specified, like, hey, we don't wear suits here. Definitely wear, slacks and a polo shirt, or dress down a little bit if you feel so inclined. And I think the world is a different place now. It used to be, back in the day when I started my career, it was you definitely wear a suit, you definitely wear a certain type of shoes. I think there's a lot of places now that are a little bit different and doing some things where you can, wear something nice and maybe wear some Converse or something like that, so just make sure you kind of find out about the company cultures, because there's no cut and dry with this stuff anymore. It's all kind of more open, and companies are doing some different stuff. So feel free to ask about that. I think that's a fair question. Like, hey, if I showed up to an interview, is it expected that I wear a full suit, and find out? People never mind that question. So, and several copies of your resume, just to be sure. A lot of times more people will come and you bring 1 or 2 copies of your resume, and all of a sudden there's 4 people sitting in there. It's really, really awesome to have 4 copies of your resume, to be able to give one to everybody. I think it kind of shows that you're prepared, and that you take that next step. So arriving early, bringing a lot of copies of your resume, looking nice. I mean, it's really half the battle, maybe more than half. So any questions on any of that?
We have a couple of questions in the chat.
Oh, perfect. I can't see the chat, but feel free to fire away, Marty. Thanks.
You're good. Yeah. So one was from Miriam, and she said, what kind of questions should we ask at the end of interviews to get a better feel of the company culture?
I think that's Ed. Ed, keep it down. Hey, Miriam, I'm going to cover that. I'm glad you asked that. That's on maybe one of the next few slides, where I talk a little bit more. I'm going to talk about the interview. I'm going to talk about interview questions. I'm going to talk about follow-up. I'm going to talk about all of that stuff. And if I don't, then I'm a liar, and we can answer that for you. But it's definitely coming. So
yes, and so we'll go over that soon. And there's a couple more questions, and one of them is a really great question, a question I have myself. But one of the questions were, is there an appropriate way to ask the company's rules on if they are in person, virtual, or hybrid?
No, I mean, that's a fair question. It's a question I get all the time. I think that should really be one of the first things that you determine, because it's one of those things where that's a big piece to it. Am I moving for a job? Am I staying put? Is there an office where I am, where I can go into sometimes? Am I just going to work from home? If I do work from home, is there the opportunity to, travel to headquarters quarterly or a couple times a year, or something like that? So, for us specifically, we're headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky. We also have a big presence in some other cities: Chicago, Green Bay, Tampa, Phoenix, Dallas. So if you are in those cities, then you can kind of work a hybrid model a little bit. But that's really, it depends on the position, especially within, with actuaries right now. It's really one of those things where you can be totally work from home. You can be, work from the office. You can be hybrid. I would really say there's less 100% office work. It's one of those things where it might be a few days in the office and a couple days at home is kind of what I'm hearing from different companies, Humana included. Totally fair question. I think that's one of the first things you should determine, when you're looking for a job is what are the expectations as far as me physically being somewhere. So it's a fair question. It's a question I would just flat out ask. As far as if this is a fit and I'm the right candidate, am I expected to be in the office all the time? Is it a split? Is it work from home? If it is work from home, how often, would I be in the office, or how often would I travel, and things like that. So the company should know, the recruiter should know, the actuarial leader should know, everybody should know, and they should be happy to share that with you. Does that help?
I think so. Christina, I hope that helped you with that. I think that is a fair question. I know that that's a worry. We want to know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to ask. And I think that's a fair question as well, Matt.
It
So
did, thank you.
hopefully,
Actually, one follow-up question I have on that is it also appropriate to state like your preference on how many days you want to go in, or is that something you should kind of wait
I,
to say at the end of the interview or at the end of the process?
I think for me, and this was even before the COVID stuff, I always say be as open as possible. And it's not, unless you specifically have something in mind, I always say location, say that you're open, because it might be something where, the opportunity is better than you thought, and you might be open to it. Even if you thought, hey, I wanted to stay here and not go here, the opportunity might be something where you would go. So I would get all the information first and then kind of nail that down, instead of, going in with, well, I want to be in the office 3 days a week and home 2 days a week, and I need to be home Fridays and Wednesdays, something like that. I would go in with, what, I'm open to the right situation for the right company, and then seeing where that goes. I mean, they could have in their mind too that they want someone in the office 5 days a week, and they might meet you and say, you know what, like, she's so great. We want her in the office 2 days a week, and 3 days a week she can work from home. Because we really want her. And that's something where, to a point, unless it's something that you definitely, need to be home for 3 days a week, or home, work from home and things like that, be as open as you possibly can. And then once everybody determines like, hey, this is a great fit, start to have those conversations, about specifics. So, hopefully that helps. I always kind of like that mindset of let's take a look at the opportunity. Let's not worry about the specifics. Like, that's like going in and saying, well, what does this position pay? Right. I would never do that. I would never start with what does this pay, and how many days a week can I work from home, and how much PTO do I get? I would say, I'm open. I'm really excited about this opportunity. I would look at the opportunity, and then as you get closer down, then obviously you can worry about offer. You can worry about working from home, how many days, and kind of those expectations. Does that make sense? Does that help you, Christina?
It does, thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. Yeah, too many people limit themselves. They go in and, and students, and I would meet them, and they're like, well, I have to stay in Dallas, and I want to work from home. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to work. So, you're automatically, not considered. Whereas if they said I'm open and we love the person, maybe we could have worked something out, so I always say be as open as you can. So.
perfect. Thank you, Matt. And there's just one more question from Sharif in the chat. He said, if I don't have any questions at the end of my interview, is it appropriate to say I don't have any? Yes. Yep.
I would not. I mean, obviously, you can do whatever you want to do if you don't have any questions. But I feel if they're truly, if there are no questions, I would think of a question. And people love, interviewers love, especially to tell you something, I think, because they're information gathering. And I think having at least a question or two at the end of the interview shows an interest, and it shows that it gets the interviewer talking a little bit, and people like that. Like if you go into a party or a social setting and you just ask people about themselves the entire time, and you never say anything about yourself, and you just talk about them and get them to talk about themselves, you can ask a simple question. You can ask this 100% of the time. Hey, tell me about your career. I'm curious because you are where you are as an actuary. Tell me a little bit about your career. I'm intrigued by that. And then stop talking. And then they get to talking about themselves a little bit. And then guess what? They walk away from that interview and they're like, holy cow, I really like that person, because they got to talk about themselves or their company. So I personally, I'm pretty easy in an interview, but if I say, hey, do you have any questions, when I'm all done, they say, no, I'm good. I'm like, whoa. So, it's one of those things where it shows to me that maybe you don't have as much interest as I thought you did if you don't have any questions. Now, I can't speak for everybody, but I would at least have, and I think that's in here too later on, at least a few questions about the company. You know, where do you see the company in 5 years? I read about you guys are doing more with at-home care. You know, where do you see that going? I mean, it can really be anything. But have those written down too in your notebook or virtually. Have 10 questions bulleted out. Just standard questions for everybody. Ask a couple of them. It can do nothing. I've had interviews where I go in where I'm like kind of on the fence, like the person's kind of good and they ask a couple great questions and I'm like, I bump them up, you know, from a one ranking to another ranking because they ask some really insightful questions. So.
I hope that helps you, Sharif. And I had the similar advice too. I got the same advice. Never go into an interview and not have at least 1 or 2 questions to ask to show interest. Which you should if you are interested in working in a company. Questions will pop up when you're doing research, when you're looking on, you know, LinkedIn for the person that you're going to be interviewing with, recruiters. You can always find a question. And we just have one more question, Matt. And they're asking about these questions like, how many coffee shops are in Chicago? Or like, give an instance where there's a conflict, either conflict of ideas or something, and you resolve that conflict. So basically those interview questions where they're trying to get more, I guess, information on you, how would you like respond, or like what's the best way to answer those questions?
Well, I really don't know on the coffee shop question because we don't ask. I guess what they're looking for are how you can gather information and think about something logically. We don't ask those. I don't ask those. We just, you know, with the, you know, it's one of those things where we use behavioral based. So definitely the piece of tell me about a time you had a group project and you had a conflict within the group. How did you help to resolve it? I can definitely, what I'm looking for is what you specifically did within a situation. And it doesn't have to be something where you reinvented the wheel or anything like that. It can just be something where hey, I took a step back. I took a look at what this person was saying and what this person was saying. We found a middle ground. This is how we proceeded, and this was the outcome. So that's really all those questions are looking for, is how you handle, because in different things like the number of coffee shops in Chicago or conflict within a group, especially within actuarial science, you have all this chaos, right? And so actuarial science is really making chaos orderly and putting it into data sets and making sense of that data. So interview questions like that are looking for you to not get overwhelmed and are looking for you to make sense of something. So, if they ask you the coffee shop question, I would say probably, if you need more information, feel free to ask for more information and specifically what they're looking for and what they're hoping to accomplish with that question, because they might be asking you a question and you just run with it and you go off in a different direction, but they're looking for something completely different. So I would ask for clarification. I would say, hey, when we're looking for this, what is the reason that we're looking for this? And then think about it logically. With those behavioral based questions, same thing. How did you look at it logically? How do you work through a problem? How do you stay calm? Maybe even things like, I had somebody answer something. They were like, this conflict was going on, and we decided to set up a call for an hour, and then I went for a run to kind of clear my head, and then we went back and we were able to, sit down at a coffee shop, and talk about it and figure it out. So hopefully that helps you. But I think a lot of these interview questions, they're thrown at you to see how you can think through a problem and how you can work logically and how you can gather your data and your thoughts and make sense of it. Hopefully that helps you, because it doesn't matter what the question is. That's ultimately what the interviewer is looking for, is that you handle yourself in kind of a level manner. Does that make sense?
Yep, that was for Sharif. Sharif said, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Sharif.
Yeah. I believe, yeah, he said yes, absolutely. Cool.
Awesome.
Yay.
All right, I got a few more slides. Is that cool? Can we, I don't remember what's on it. Hopefully it's good stuff. It's good. So here's a little bit about the interview itself. So, interviews they're stressful, right? It's not it's not a natural thing to sit down in front of someone and answer all these questions. It's just not. So it's stressful. So I would say relax beforehand. If that means do some stretching, go have a latte, you know, whatever it is, you know, go and do it. Go for a walk. That always kind of clears up the mind and everything. Confidence, I think, just going in and saying, you know what, you can do your best, and you know, you go in and you own it and take what comes your way. You can't worry about what you don't know, and if you don't know something, ask. You know, if somebody expects you to go in and into an interview knowing everything, it's probably not the spot for you. Little things like make sure your cell phone's off. You know, new protocols. So interviewers' behavior, you're going to run into different sorts of, like, my interview is probably way on the more relaxed conversational scale. And I also understand there's some interviews where you go in and that's not the situation. So just read the person, read the person's body language. You know, are they upright and rigid? Are they more relaxed? You know, things like that kind of mirror them a little bit. You know, that's always kind of a safe play. Speak slowly and concisely. I sometimes struggle with the slowly piece. I'm working on it, but no slang. I mean, again, you know, it's one of those things. What defines slang anymore? I don't even know. I've got 2 middle school daughters. I understand like 75% of what they're saying, but I'm kind of, you know, I'm understanding a little bit and listen actively. So when the person's saying, you know, the interview's saying something, just make sure you're following along, nod your head, you know, interject where you can, don't cut them off, things like that. So just active listening, kind of a basic thing. You can use that for life, you know, as well as interviews. A lot of people they don't do active listening. They just kind of, they're waiting for the next thing to say. So that happens, right? We all know people like that, and then we try to stay away from them. Okay, so this goes into behavioral interview questions that we were talking about. So looking for what you did, a lot of times people go into, you know, a question like, how did you resolve a conflict within a group? They talk about it in more general sense. What I'm really looking for is what did you do within that situation? So lay it out for me, you know, make it as simple as possible. What did you do? And then what was the result? Some people leave that out, but a lot of companies go off of these behavioral based interview questions. You know, so they're looking definitely for what you did, you know, after kind of laying it out, and then what was the result. So it's a STAR method. I'm sure you all have heard of the STAR method, and it's probably been crammed down your throat, and I'm not going to sit here and give you, there's no slide on what the STAR method is. So it's just the situation, task, action, result. And I'm really happy I remembered that, because it's been a while since I mentioned the STAR method. So it's kind of ingrained in me. So, and also feel free when you answer, like, hey, did I answer your question completely? Is that what you were looking for? Feel free, if you think you're leaving something off, asking that. And again, if the person is like dings you for asking a question and making sure that you got everything that you needed, maybe that's not the place for you, because I've heard of things like that where, you know, they don't like that, where you ask a question and making sure, I'm like, that's just weird, you know. It's because it's an interview should be a two-way street. And if you're not clear on something, ask, you know, don't just start to run with it. So here's some examples. Oops. Yep. Okay. So why do you want to leave your current job? You know, answer of like, I'm getting burned out. I've been here for 3 years looking for a change. Maybe say I've been here 3 years ready for a new challenge. Your team offers career growth and more opportunity to expand my knowledge. So not just, you know, I'm burned out on this job and I need a new one. Hey, I'm looking for a new opportunity and this looks intriguing. So there's just always kind of a better way. You definitely don't want an employee, you know, or hire someone that's really down on where they currently are. It's kind of a turnoff. So be complimentary of, you know, your past experience or where you are. And then, you know, make sure you talk about the new opportunity and how exciting that sounds. So what's your greatest strength? Communication skills. As I struggle for the words. So you can add to that. So priding myself on communication skills, and then give an example. So my first job was in a call center, gave me a foundation to actively listen while making sure responses were clear, concise. And then, so the interview is sitting there and it's like, oh shoot, they've done this. This is what they did already. And so you went from saying like, my greatest strength is communication. Okay, you know, everybody says that, right? My strength is, you know, I bring people together. Okay, give me an example. Like, what do you do in your job? And if you can give an example of things that you've done in the past, you know, future behavior is largely based on what you've already done. You know, people are not going to all of a sudden change. So if you've done things like that, you're probably going to continue to do that. So if you can give those type of examples, that's what gets interviewers excited. So you almost make it easy to hire you or hard not to hire you if you can give it examples of, you know, how you're a great communicator. So tell me, this is a hard one, like tell me a time when you weren't performing well or meeting expectations. And I hate this answer. It happens sometimes, but it's like, oh, I can't think of any, you know, any time when I had, you know, a situation where I wasn't performing well, because you can make it something. Everybody's got something to where maybe you didn't succeed at 100% efficiency. So this is just an example. You know, you join the current team, you're in meetings all day, didn't leave a lot of time for actual work. And what do you learn from it? So you didn't have enough balance in your day. So you talked with your peers and your leader about prioritizing the day, and then you rearrange your schedule, and then you had enough time. So it's like, nobody expects you to go into a situation and be 100% perfect. Nobody's perfect, not even the people on this call, such as Matt Parker, who thinks he's perfect, but he's not. Just seeing if Matt Parker's even paying attention. But if you can give an example of maybe where you didn't operate at 100%, that's always nice, rather than, no, I've always met expectations. I've always, you know, been perfect, is kind of what the interviewers say. So think of some examples like that where, you know, you worked as a group, and maybe the group started off in kind of a clunky manner, but then you worked it out. And then the result of what the group project was. I always like group projects because it shows that you can work together with people towards a common goal. So my advice to you through interviewing would be, you're going to get a lot of these STAR questions. Come up with, if you can, like 20 situations, 15, 12, whatever you can do, where you worked with a group. It can be with IABA, it can be with the dance team, it can be for math class, it can be for whatever, lacrosse club, or, you know, what, I've heard it all. And you worked with a group, and it was a fundraiser, it was an event, it was a class project, it was something, and you had to work with other people, and you had to work towards a common goal, and you had to work with all different types of people with all different types of thoughts, and talk about how you work through some adversity. And that's really, I mean, that's kind of it's a trick, you know, and if you can have a bunch of good examples like that, you'll cruise through interviews. And if you can, you know, if you can practice that and practice your delivery, you'll be unstoppable. So here's those questions we covered, you know, a little bit of that. You want to talk about work from home. You know, some of these are some of the questions that you can ask. You know, even if you really don't have any questions, these are some good questions. Oops, were some good questions. So, you know, tell me about the top performers. How are they successful? You know, what interested you about me? How, you know, to keep your team engaged? And then listen to what they say, and then summarize briefly how you'd be a great fit. Hey, I'm really pumped about this opportunity. I can't tell you how little I hear stuff like that. Like, I'm really excited about this opportunity. This is what I think I would bring just based on what you're saying. What are the next steps? When should I expect to hear from you? When can I follow up with you? I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be a bother to you. Just let me know if it's Friday. I'll send you an email. How should I follow up? Should I phone call? Should I text? Should I, you know what I mean? So be clear on next steps. They should share that with you. So, you know, if someone says to me, can I send you an email on Friday if I haven't heard from you? Absolutely. And then the email say, hey, this is so-and-so. You said I can follow up with you on Friday if I haven't heard anything. I want to reiterate, I'm really excited about the opportunity. Can't hurt, right? So thank you, email. Future interviews. So, you know, take a look at what you did good and bad and kind of go over that. And then the offer, that's a whole nother conversation, because that's kind of changed as well. used to be you kind of take what you can get, and now it's a little bit different. But that might be another topic, Morgan. We might do a working through your offer with Matthew Coles. So all right, cool. I know I kind of cruised through that. I'm working on speaking more clearly and concisely. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have anything to add? Anything at all?
We did have one question from Wisdom in the chat. Asked if an interviewer once asked, an interviewer once asked me if I'm an introvert or an extrovert. What's the best way to answer this type of question?
I think I won't comment on the question. I think everybody's a combination of the two. I think, unless you're truly somebody, that doesn't want to work with other human beings and you just want to do programming and spreadsheets, I don't think that's the right answer. And I don't think they're looking for someone that, is a total extrovert that just wants to be surrounded with other people and be out there. I think, to me, and I don't think this is a lie, I think this would apply to 100% of human beings, that you're a combination of both. This is how I'm an extrovert, this is how I'm an introvert, and then talk about different things that you like to do, or different things that you've worked on that kind of demonstrate that you're an extrovert or you're an introvert, because I think everybody's got little pieces of both. Like maybe I'll give you an example. Maybe you're an introvert in that, late at night, sometimes you like to learn about SQL or SAS, or, you picked up Power BI and you love doing stuff on the computer and programming. I think that would be a home run, right? Especially if you do, or you like playing even a video game and you're kind of by yourself and you're playing a video game or solitaire or a game or something to kind of work your mind, and you like to do that. Most people have some introverted type of activity that they like. And then, hey, I'm also an extrovert because I'm in youth group, or I'm in student dance, or I'm in IABA and we do these events and things like that, or I'm in this group and things like that. So I'm a nice mix of both. So it's really hard to just answer if I'm an extrovert or an introvert, because I think I'm a nice combination of the two. And I think that fits for 100% of human beings, unless you're just crazy and you're 0% an introvert and you're just maybe like, you all know the football player Rob Gronkowski. I think he's an extra. All he does is go around and party and be loud. So I don't think there's many people like that. So does that help you? I think that's a question I haven't heard, and I feel like that's a good answer. And it's not a question I would ask, but I think it's something to think about. I don't think it's a lie, because I think everybody is a little bit of both. So.
He said, yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I get that too. Yeah, I haven't heard that question either, but it reminds me of kind of like the well-rounded, like they're trying to figure out like how you can fit into the company culture, or, if they're always like in each other's spaces 24/7, then that might be, the extrovert component, but yeah.
I feel like you can figure that out when you ask your behavioral questions.
Right,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you ask some behavioral, hey, tell me about some stuff you're involved with out of school. Tell me about some of your you can kind of get that without asking. Anyways, whatever. It's a fair question, I suppose. It's kind of again, I'll withhold comment on the question.
Same. Were there any other questions? You can drop it in the chat. Rama said, from your interviewing experience, what are things you recommend not doing when in an interview?
Oh, how much time do you have?
Right.
A little time. I think the biggest thing is, punctuality. Very important, and I understand things arise, but that's a huge one, is being on time and being present and not seeming, seem like you're very rushed. Being there early and relaxed and introducing yourself and sitting down and having a nice start to an interview. The phone, I think mine, telephone, shut it off, flip it down if you have to have it out. Unless you have like an extreme situation. I had somebody that his wife was actually gonna, have a baby. And so he put it on silent and said, can I keep it up just in case? I was like, yeah, man, you can, absolutely. But unless you have like an emergency, the phone piece, I think the piece we talked about earlier, just at least having a question or two at the end shows interest. I think that's very important. I think it's a piece that people miss. I think just being relaxed, I think a lot of people get nervous, and I understand that. And I think by now I'm able to kind of see through, some people are more comfortable with interviewing and some people aren't, but I think the more relaxed you can be and the more conversational you can be with it, the better you're going to come off. So these are all simple things that you can do. Practice with a friend, shut your phone off, be on time. I think that's half the battle. Practice some of these questions. Like I said, even if you're in person, you can have a book and then before the interview starts, ask, hey, do you mind if I have my binder and, I write some things down and then you, in your notebook, you can have, questions or situations and you can have this stuff written down. And I'll never fault someone for looking at that. So, I think just being prepared, being genuinely interested, knowing a little bit about the company and the position, that's another huge one. So I would at least do a little bit of research, know what the company does, kind of know what the leadership structure looks like and know about the big things that are going on. You don't have to sit there and cite stock price and things like that, but at least know a little bit about the company. So simple stuff, right? But you'd be surprised. We run across people that don't cover those things and they're kind of starting from a disadvantage, if you will. So.
Yes, that was a good question and great answer.
Yeah, it was a great question.
Yes, and also make sure you keep if you're doing your laptop, make sure you keep it plugged into your charger when you're on your interview, because that happened to me where I was in an interview and my computer died and I wasn't able to, it was done. And I reached out to them and I was like, can we continue? They did not want to continue. So yes, make sure you just keep the momentum going and try and keep that atmosphere and everything just good, and do so by just keeping your laptop charged. That's a really big thing. Yes. Are there any more questions at all? Going once, going twice. It might be faster if you take yourselves off mute too. Okay, so I'm going once, going twice. Cool. Okay. So well, thank you. I know that it is 1:03, so we're a little past the hour as well. I believe Matthew Parker dropped, Matthew Parker dropped at the top, dropped his LinkedIn in the chat. So make sure you all take advantage of that as well. I believe his email is on there too. So
I just put my email address in there. So feel free to email me any questions, or if you're interested in Humana, or you just want to chat, happy to chat with you, somewhat friendly. So again, I've been doing this a long time and happy to, we've been working with IABA for a while. I've been going to conferences for 8-9 years. So definitely love the program and you guys. So please let me know if you have any questions at all.
Yes. Thank you, Matt. And please take advantage of these individuals. Like he said, he's been doing it for a while and has been involved. So those are the experts or the people that we want to continue to connect you all with as well. So yes, thank you, Matt, and thank you to the other Humana callers, Humana employees on the call. Thank you so much for coming today. And thank you all for being on today's call. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you all have any questions, excuse me. please reach out to me. And also next Tuesday is the career fair. Excuse me, y'all. I have something in my throat. Yes, so if next Tuesday we will be having our virtual career fair. And thank you, Wisdom, for coming. Yes, our virtual career fair next Tuesday. It is going to be on our Brazen platform, but you can find it on IABA's website, blackactuaries.org. The link and everything is there, and all of the information, all of the different employers that will be there for that day is there too. Thank you, Cherie. If you all are not able to attend next Tuesday, you can send your resume to me and we can add it to the resume book that will be sent over to the companies that will be there. So yeah, thank you all again. I will have this posted later today because we got done and everything. So I'll go ahead and just upload it today. And if you, once again, if you all have any questions, please just let me know at any time. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your day.
Hey, thanks, Morgan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Bye.